Hello, everyone. I'm Peter Larson with the Ottawa Forum on Israel-Palestine, and I'm very happy to be talking today with Michael Bueckhart, who is the Vice President of Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East, CJPME. Michael, welcome.
Thanks so much.
Michael, we are now in the first week in February. There's lots going on. That Amnesty International report has just come out. But I originally started off wanting to talk to you about your very interesting, CGP's very interesting podcast series. You are now doing, they're just audio, correct? They're audio
That's right.
podcast series. And the general format is to address current issues relating to Israel-Palestine question. You sometimes have guests in, sometimes it's just you and Tom having a conversation. What was the origin of the idea of doing this?
I think we've been sort of mulling it over for a while, and eventually we just found the time to do it. But we've been, thinking about different ways to get the message out about the work that we're doing, and to engage Canadians and people about these issues in a way that's accessible, and using, I guess, channels that we weren't already making use of. I think there's people who are interested in issues about Palestine, but maybe they'd rather listen to a discussion about it on a podcast rather than reading articles about it. And so we thought this would be a new outreach tool and a new forum for that kind of engagement work. And there really wasn't any other sort of audio podcast out there on iTunes doing this kind of thing. There's really good podcasts that do work like on this, like Electronic Intifada has a podcast, Mondo Weiss, US based and Palestinian ones as well. But there hasn't been a podcast that is looking at these issues from a Canadian perspective, right, and always bringing it back to Canadian policy. And so that's, I think, what is unique about this podcast. And then yeah, we're trying our best to make it not too academic, or sort of like you shouldn't have to be an expert or like really involved in order to be able to listen and follow along. We're trying to break things down and explain things and make them accessible and relevant.
So that's sort of who do you envisage your audience to? So people who are already members, subscribers to CJPME, so you're trying to deepen their understanding, or is it meant to go to new people who may not have basic understanding about the issue? Who are you aiming?
Well, hopefully both. I think like there are people obviously who are already following CJPME, and they want to hear more. They want us to get deeper into those issues. But I'm sure there's other people who aren't following us but do listen to a lot of podcasts, and so hopefully we're both, I guess, deepening or having better engagement with those who are already following our work, but also maybe hopefully reaching new audiences. And part of that, we've been really lucky to partner with the Harbinger Media Network, which is a progressive network of independent podcasts. And in that way, I think we're also trying to reach into new audiences as well.
Do you have some metrics on how many people are tuning in? How's it going?
It's early, but it's pretty consistent. Between 1 and 200 downloads per episode. Whether or not I don't fully understand that aspect of it, so I'm not sure. I think, but it's quite consistent so far, and I think as long as we continue to put out a consistently interesting and quality enough product, I think more and more, hopefully we can build the base and reach out further. And but yeah, we're happy with the feedback we've heard so far. People are responding very well, and so hopefully we can continue to work on that. We're new to podcasts. We're experimenting with it. We're in the I think it's only been a few months we've been doing this, so it's still quite new. And if anyone has any advice or thoughts on how we can improve our work, or if there's other topics they'd like us to address, they can reach out to us. But yeah, I think so far we're off to a good start.
I certainly find the first of all, it's very professionally looks and sounds professional. The sound is good, and musical intro kind of, and the back and forth between you and Tom, or with other guests, I think makes it something you could have on while you're driving and not necessarily hear every single part of it, but what I find is that if you have a long presentation and you lose the thread, then it's a bit hard to get back on in the saddle. So I find this a very convenient kind of approach to things.
Good. That's good to hear.
Now, in your most recent podcast, you were talking about this very important report from Amnesty International, and you were in your discussion, you were talking about some of the elements that you thought were new in this report. It's not, in the way I heard you describing it, it's not just a repeat underlined bold of what Human Rights Watch did or what B'Tselem did, but there were actually some new elements in this report. Maybe you could just review a couple of them for us, please.
Yeah, and some of this maybe is sort of similar to what B'Tselem did, and other aspects are kind of similar to Human Rights Watch. They all have fairly similar elements to them, but I think what is quite significant about the Amnesty report, on the one hand, is that it's taking, I guess, it's taking a big view at the problem, both in terms of space and time. Or to put it another way, we're looking at Israel as a regime, an apartheid regime that covers the entire area that it controls. So we're not just looking at the occupied Palestinian territories, but Amnesty is talking about how Israel's apartheid regime affects and discriminates against Palestinians as well, who are citizens of Israel and who are refugees and who are prevented from returning to their homes based on discriminatory policies. So on that sense, it's widening the geographical scope of analysis, but it's also widening the scope in terms of time, and that we're not going back again to 1967 with the start of that occupation, but we're going back to 1948 and seeing that a lot of these processes and practices of apartheid were really developed right from the formation of the State of Israel, when it comes to the creation of essentially an approach to the Palestinians as an inferior racial group, and the introduction of policies that are intended to dominate against the Palestinians and privileged Jewish Israelis. So in both space and time, I think it really widens the analysis, and it just takes so many different aspects of Israeli domination and interprets them through this lens where you can see that they're all part of the same system that has the same intent to dominate. So yeah, I thought it was a great report. I was quite impressed, and those are a few reasons why.
Another thing that I think was new with that was a quite unequivocal call for the right of return, which I don't think the other two reports have addressed. And frankly, an issue which I think a lot of Canadians, even a lot of people who are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, have some trouble with, either agreeing with it, or even if they agree with it, say, well, could it ever happen? So it's very rare that organizations tackle that one directly.
Right. And I think maybe the reason that we're sort of I think we're seeing more advocacy around that is because of the work of the BDS movement, frankly, over the last 15 years or so, and how one of the three central demands of BDS is the right of return for refugees. And so I think the advocacy that they've been doing in particular has made it so it's harder to forget it from our analysis. But I was surprised to see Amnesty include it, because it is something that, I mean, the BDS movement's support for right of return is a big reason why so many people are afraid to support it, or quick to criticize it.
Yeah, and in fact, some of the defenders of BDS kind of condense it, go BDS to end the occupation or something. It's sort of find it more convenient to focus on that demand than on the other two. I think that's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael, I'm going to put a link on my page here to your blog. The link goes to the blog, to the webcast generally, not to any specific one, but people can very easily navigate to that one. And I hope that your readership continues to grow over the next little while. So good luck to you, and let's see how this adventure works for you.
Great, thanks so much.